One day, you find yourself standing in the middle of your life. Everything you built lies scattered. The branches you clung to have broken. The ground you believed in has slipped away. Your heart floats in emptiness. Your breath shortens. Your mind goes silent. And for a moment, it feels like the end. But Ibn Arabi whispers, there is no such thing as an end. Every ending is the beginning of a new divine unfolding. Even collapse belongs to the order of the real. Nothing falls apart without purpose. No heart breaks without giving birth to new understanding. Your fall is not a punishment. It is a gift of new eyes. For those who stand upright only see what's above the soil, but those who fall learn the face of the earth. And the earth is the first mirror of creation. The secret of humility lives there. God reminds you of yourself in the dust. To fall is to meet the earth again, to return to your origin, your root, your essence. As you rise, you grow proud. As you fall, you begin to learn. Every collapse is a lesson written in divine ink. It shatters the false walls within, the self that believes it is strong, the mind that believes it is in control, the intellect that believes it can comprehend everything. Yet Ibn Arabi says even understanding can be a veil, for there are truths that cannot be learned, only lived, and falling is where knowledge ends and consciousness begins. In that place, words no longer speak, states do. You stop asking, why me, and begin asking, what am I being shown? At that question, the gate of the real opens. God draws his servant near, not only by lifting him, but by letting him fall. For the one standing high only sees their own shadow, but the one lying on the ground perceives the sky. The fall, then, is not a failure but a change of direction. You descend, but you deepen. You lose something, but you find something else. Perhaps a friend, a job, a belief, a sense of safety. But behind every loss waits a new revelation. Every emptiness is space made for God. Collapse breaks your resistance, but the breaking of resistance is not weakness. It is the beginning of surrender. Resistance is the armor of the ego. It seems to protect you, but it blocks the touch of the real. A heart too hard cannot let light enter. That is why sometimes God breaks the heart, so that the light can come in. Ibn Arabi calls these the blows of mercy. What you call pain is the hand of compassion. It destroys only to turn you back toward him. To fall is to touch what you were made of. It is to meet the same soil that once received God's breath. The dust remembers you, even when you forget yourself. And when your knees touch it again, the earth whispers, "Welcome home." The ground does not judge. It receives everything, the broken, the proud, the lost. It hides the dead and grows the living. It turns decay into birth, endings into seeds. This is why Ibn Arabi calls the earth the teacher of humility, because the soil does not choose, it accepts. In the dust, you remember the shape of surrender. When everything you built collapses, you realize you were never the builder. You were the clay being shaped, not the hand that shaped it. The proud man looks at mountains and says, "I made that." The one who has fallen whispers, "I am that." For to know the earth is to know the first mirror of God. Every grain carries his name. Every root drinks from his mercy. Falling is not a descent into failure. It is a return to origin. Every prophet, every saint, every seeker has knelt in this dust, for it is written that the earth remembers footsteps that bow, not those that trample. Ibn Arabi says the real teaches through contrasts. You learn standing by falling. You learn seeing by being blinded. You learn being by being broken. This is how the infinite educates the finite. When you fall, the mind finally loses its throne. The body trembles, the ego cracks, the soul listens. And for the first time, silence becomes your teacher. What looks like ruin is really a classroom. Each loss is a lesson in disguise. Each ache a doorway to tenderness. Even the soil knows. Without being plowed, it cannot bear fruit. So let yourself be turned. Let the sharp plow of life cut through the field of your being. Do not resist the hands that shape you. The same hand that breaks the earth, waters it. The same hand that wounds, heals. The same God who hides, reveals. And in that moment, when you stop fighting gravity, when you stop trying to rise, you discover something sacred, that the ground was never your enemy. You were not falling apart. You were falling into Him. There comes a moment after the fall when everything goes quiet. No more noise, no more movement, no more explanations. Only the echo of what once was. And it's terrifying, until you realize it's holy. This is the space where Ibn Arabi says God begins to reshape His servant. He calls it the divine pause. The void that feels like death is not punishment, it's preparation. Silence is not the absence of life. It is life before words. It is what existed when the universe was still a thought in God's mind. In that emptiness, something begins to awaken. Not outside you, but within. Because when all sound stops, the heart finally hears its own pulse, and that pulse is His name. You thought you were forgotten, but you were being rewritten. You thought you were lost, but you were being led inward. Ibn Arabi says, God does not throw His servant into emptiness. He draws him back with His own hands and reshapes him anew. The silence is His hand. The waiting is His brush. The ache is the sound of your old self breaking open. When everything is taken from you, it's not because you are being abandoned. It's because you are being made spacious. A cup that is full cannot be filled. The real empties you so that He can dwell within. The heart that was crowded with plans, dreams, and noise must first become hollow. That hollow is not loss, it's invitation. Ibn Arabi calls it the dwelling place of the divine. He says, when nothing remains, that is when He arrives. The silence you fear is His doorway. The stillness you avoid is His throne. Every unanswered prayer, every closed door, every lonely night is not the end of communication. It is God changing the language of your dialogue. Words will no longer serve you, only states will. And in that wordless stillness, you begin to understand what prayer really is. Prayer is not speaking to God, it's God speaking through you. So you sit, you breathe, you wait. And in the waiting, the void begins to glow. Because silence is not empty, it's full of Him. After the silence, the air begins to move again, not as a storm, but as a breath. You do not hear a voice, yet something within you whispers, "Stand." The soil beneath you has changed. It is no longer the same earth you fell upon. It has become sacred ground, tilled by tears, softened by surrender, made fertile by waiting. This is where rebirth begins, not in light, but in the dark soil of patience, not in comfort, but in acceptance. Ibn Arabi calls this place the new ground. He says, when the heart breaks, God speaks a new word upon it. That word is faith. Not the faith you inherited, but the one born from your ashes. You begin to see with new eyes. The same sky looks different. The same pain feels softer. Because you now understand that everything that left was never meant to stay. and everything that stayed is no longer what it was. You stop praying for protection. You start praying for perception. You no longer ask, "Why did this happen?" You ask, "What is this shaping within me?" The divine dialogue changes. God no longer answers from above. He responds from within. You start to recognize His voice in small things, in a calm morning, in a stranger's kindness, in the strange peace that appears without reason. Gratitude grows quietly in your chest. It does not shout. It breathes. You begin to thank not for what you have, but for what you've survived. Ibn Arabi says, "When you thank, you create. When you resist, you destroy." And you understand that gratitude is not reaction. It is transformation. It turns wounds into wisdom, endings into doors. The new ground teaches you trust, not blind optimism, but the kind that sees the wound and still bows. You begin to realize that faith is not built in comfort. It is built in confusion, when you cannot see, but still move. The soil beneath you is alive again. You are no longer afraid of uncertainty. You no longer need control to feel safe. You begin to walk barefoot, unarmored, unhurried, unafraid. And in every step, you feel something sacred, the rhythm of surrender. Because in truth, you never left the divine field. You are being replanted. You are not what fell. You are what grew after. There comes a day when the journey no longer feels like a journey. You stop looking for signs. You stop chasing meaning, because the meaning has begun to breathe through you. You no longer say, "God is with me." You say, "Nothing has ever been apart." This is the secret Ibn Arabi calls the oneness of being. The moment the mirror realizes it was never separate from the light it reflected. All the falls, all the silences, all the empty nights were leading here. Every ache was a language, every loss a translation. And now you understand. Nothing was ever taken. Only illusion was removed. You look at the world again, the trees, the faces, the shadows, and you no longer see others. You see different names of the same one. Each being becomes a verse, each breath a recitation. The heart grows vast. You no longer pray for blessings. You become one. You no longer seek heaven. You carry it in your chest. Love is no longer desire. It is recognition. The beloved and the lover have become one reflection. Ibn Arabi says, "The true lover sees God in everything he loves, and loves everything through God." This is not poetry. It is perception. You see the same divine thread moving through joy and sorrow, through birth and death, through all that comes and all that leaves. You begin to forgive easily, because there is no one left to blame. You begin to love quietly, because there is no need to possess. You begin to live simply, because there is nothing left to prove. The mind has retired. The heart has taken its throne. Silence is no longer absence. It is presence. Death is no longer ending. It is return. You feel it now, that subtle pulse behind all creation, the rhythm that breathes through galaxies and grains of sand. It whispers the same truth that every prophet carried. You were never separate. You only forgot. Ibn Arabi calls this al-insan al-kamil, the complete human, the one who mirrors every name of God without distortion, the one who no longer says I as a claim, but as a window. Through him, the real looks upon itself, and when this realization dawns, you stop fearing the next fall, because you know now there is no fall, only return, no death, only transformation. The world does not change. You do. And through that change, everything becomes holy. The wind becomes remembrance. The breath becomes prayer. The ordinary becomes sacred. You finally see, you never left his hand. Every descent was his touch. Every silence, his voice. Every loss, his mercy in disguise. And as you bow one last time, not out of despair but of recognition, you hear the whisper that ends all questions. You did not fall. I lowered you to lift you higher. You did not break. I opened you to let my light in, and in that light you disappear, not into nothingness, but into everything.